Welcome to Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. I'm Julia Elliott-Brown, the founder and CEO of Enter the Arena. I'm a serial entrepreneur and an expert in raising investment and business growth. Our mission at Enter the Arena is to empower female founders to fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business with investment expertise and business coaching. Here we share the stories of inspirational female founders who've raised investment to inspire you to do the same. You'll hear their honest accounts of what it was really like to secure funding, the highs, the lows, and the challenges they experienced on the journey. And along the way, we'll discuss top tips for how you can be successful too. Today I'm speaking with Alexandra Pluthero, the founder of Freedom Underwear. Now, if you're one of those people that can't wait to rip off your bra at the end of the day, you'll be excited to learn that Freedom Underwear is the home of the world's most comfortable D+ bras. And not only that, but Alex's brand is working hard to break the challenges of body image in fashion with their body positive imagery and messaging. Now, Alex launched Freedom in 2020, and in a very short amount of time, the brand is already in 21 stores in the UK and the US and has been featured in all the major UK publications. Alex has to date raised around £160,000, predominantly on a friends and family round, to get Freedom Underwear off the ground. You can only imagine how much fun it was for her to talk to investors about big boobs, so I can't wait to hear all about that. But let's meet Alex and find out how she did it. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's great to see you. So you started this business as a bit of a side hustle, didn't you, when you were working in a corporate job? So tell us how it all came about. Was it anything to do with being uncomfortable in your bra by any chance?
Yes, it was everything to do with being uncomfortable in my bras. I guess it sort of started the idea when I was about 13 or 14 and I started wearing above a D cup. And I would complain about my bras all the time. They were ugly, they were uncomfortable, and they didn't really speak to me as a adolescent, sort of young adult woman in the 21st century. So fast forward 10 years, I'm in my first corporate job, and I realised I'm still complaining about the same problems. And all the women I work with are echoing my feelings. And so I thought, this really seems to be a gap in the market. And real stagnant industry. There's been such a lack of innovation. It's been 10 years and I'm saying the same old thing. So I started to think a little bit more critically about the underwear industry and why I was having these problems. So I did my initial research and realized that there really wasn't enough out there for D+ women. It was really underserved. Yet the average bra size in the UK is reportedly a 36 double D, and the same in the US. Bra sizes are only going up on average, and yet it still seems to be this like niche category that's got like one dusty sort of back shelf in most of the stores. And it was something I personally felt passionate about because it's something that I'd been struggling with for so long. So that's when I thought, let me see what I can do about this. So, your classic startup naivety, how hard can it be? So I actually bought myself a sewing machine. I taught myself to sew on YouTube, and in the evenings and weekends, I just sort of bought some fabrics and started to play around on the sewing machine and sort of like hack together these hilarious prototypes. But I wanted to see, could you get somewhere? Could you make something that's comfortable for a D+ and something that, I would actually want to wear every single morning? And I realized I was actually getting somewhere just by myself with my very, very limited knowledge. Now, no background in fashion at all. So that's when I decided, I think this is it. It really stuck. Of all the sort of business ideas I'd had, this really stuck in my brain. I couldn't shake it. So that's when I decided to get expert help, and kind of the combo of working in a corporate job and actually starting the business. And then at some point I switched full time just to work on it and really develop the product. And then whilst I was doing that, I could also develop the Freedom Underwear brand and everything, those kind of values that I could bring to life.
I can't believe you taught yourself how to do all this. That's incredible. Because from what I know, I mean, making underwear isn't easy. And you look at all those bras that you think, they all have wires in them, don't they? The especially the larger size ones, which is horrible. What we do to ourselves, like this wearing
Yeah,
wires. It's kind of like the old days of corsets. Why
absolutely.
is that? Why has it been so stuck? Do you think?
Because most of the companies are run by men. um,
Yeah.
there's just been a real lack of innovation, and the wired bra was invented and it kind of did a job back then, which was great, but we don't run around in plimsolls we invented in the 50s, do we? Trainer science has come on massively, and it's the same with bras. Our material science has come on dramatically, yet we weren't sort of utilizing that for women's basics and women's intimates. So that's where I really wanted to bring the combo of the two and really look at elasticity content and that sort of thing. A lot of the companies are run by men, and we did have, we had a heyday of selling underwear as selling sex. Underwear was sexy. It was that, or it was granny pants. I'm stereotyping here, but that's what it was. And we're just sort of seeing big steps forward in female focused products, and you can see it in sanitary products and razors. The way we choose to sell products, the way we speak to women, underwear is still quite far behind. So I always wanted to kind of lead the charge in innovative products, but also in the way we speak about them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so, what is it about your bras that kind of does shake things up? Is it about the design? Is it the material? What is it that allows you to accommodate, bigger boobs without having to resort to putting wire in it?
Yeah, so we're actually the only company in the UK that I'm aware of that only does D plus cup sizes and only does wire-free bras. No one actually focuses in on the niche specifically. Lots of companies do those bras, but they do a lot of other things as well. So what makes Freedom special is that we really, really focused in on that niche. The way bigger bras, I'll keep this brief, the way bigger bras are actually made is they make bras for like a B-size cup. And they're quite often fashion led because that's how a lot of the companies run. And then they just make everything bigger. And sometimes that does mean making the strap bigger because you do need a wider strap on a larger cup size. But we actually flip the process. We design specifically for like G cup and above and make sure that that kind of engineering problem is solved. It comes down to the elastane content of the fabrics, how firm the foam is on our cups. And then we think about what we want it to look like, how soft we want to make it, and make sure that everything kind of looks aesthetically pleasing. So we really just flip that around. And I think, I'm not a fashion student. I didn't come with that background. So I come from really like a customer perspective. And it just kind of works. We cracked making a bra for bigger cup sizes that gives you shape and support and comfort. And you wouldn't think it was wire-free.
That's incredible. So at the beginning then, so it sounds like there were lots to do in terms of getting this product right. And you had, as you say, you had to bring in experts and you were doing it while you were still working. So was there a lot of money that you had to put into getting the product right before you launched? And how did you fund that very beginning part of your journey?
Yeah, of course, with any product-based business, there is upfront cost. This wasn't a skill I had, so I had to outsource that. And you're making physical things, you're actually stitching garments. And there's not a lot of garment manufacturing in the UK, specifically, well, especially not in underwear. So then you've got limited supply, which means prices are quite high for those sorts of things in the UK. I'd actually been sort of saving my whole life. I mean, when I say my whole life, I was sort of 23, 24 when I started. So it'd been about 10 years, but I'd saved like that birthday check your grandma gave you. And I was a real saver. So I'd built up, sort of £10,000 over those years. And I never really knew why I was saving. I just always felt like there was going to be something that I'm going to need this money for. And it turned out it was freedom. That was what I had in the bank. And I was able to use that to start those initial prototypes, which is really key because if you are going to fundraise or do anything like get a team or get anyone interested, you've got to have something to show for it. So I really needed to create initial prototypes to get people on board. So I used that. I used the savings in my bank account to begin with to hire experts to help me do the design, to do the technical drawings, to create a pattern, and then to stitch it together to get some initial prototypes. At that point, I could then test with customers, women. And at that point, I could really start selling the vision, what I wanted to do, what the brand was. And only at that point could I really start thinking about, okay, I've got a real business here. What am I going to do about that? How am I going to launch? What do I need to launch? Do I need funding? And that kind of kicked off that process. But I had to use savings to get there.
And did you ever feel scared about spending all that money you'd saved up over 10 years? Did you ever get the wobbles about it, or were you absolutely convinced?
I was definitely convinced to begin with, but the longer it takes and things take time, I can only speak for garment manufacturing, but things take so painfully long, especially when you're a nobody in the beginning, so you always get put to the bottom of everyone's pile. That's when you can start to catch the wobbles where you're like, God, this is dragging on. I've quit my job. Oh my God, how much of my savings am I really going to use? Is this worth it? And then the pressure starts to build. Well, I've almost spent all of my savings now, so this has to work. I understood, I know the definition of what an entrepreneur is, I know what risk taking is, but suddenly there's a few reality moments where you start to think, okay, wasn't really signing up for this much risk. But it's that fire in your belly. It's that kind of, okay, I've spent what I've got now. I really need to go and make this a success. And it does drive you.
Yeah, there's nothing more motivating than seeing your cash balance in the bank.
And fear, yeah.
But once you're on that entrepreneurial journey, it's kind of like you're on it, isn't it? And then you're like, right, I've got to make it. But I mean, I guess, it sounds like you had a really sensible approach about how to get this business off the ground in terms of knowing that you needed the prototypes to be able to sell the vision. So I'm guessing that you probably already had it in mind that you would need more funding right from the get-go.
Yeah, quite a few people in my family have started businesses. And so I have seen that beginning process. What it takes to launch a company. Don't expect to just set up a website and get 10,000 visitors per day, right from the outset. You've got to spend a bit of money to get in front of people and to convince people. You need to have blind faith in your product. You need to have the ultimate confidence in what you're doing, but don't expect that everyone else to feel that too, even though you think your product is revolutionary. So I knew you kind of needed to spend a little bit in the beginning to get there. Even just the very basics, a website subscription, an email marketing subscription, they all cost. So I thought I'm going to need a bit around the launch. And I'm also going to need to buy some product. So I spent on product development. You get your prototype, you have to iterate until you're happy with it. And then you have to go and do a production run. So I have quite a traditional business model in that sense. And I think I had good payment terms in the beginning, which was 50% on placing the order and then 50% on delivery. There's a lot of people, it could be 100% up front. So then you're fronting thousands, tens of thousands on product before you've even sold it. So I knew I needed some cash in the bank to launch. Yeah. I was very busy on product development and did not want to think about that because that is not the fun bit. And that was not why I started the business. So I was like very happily designing bras. And then I had to think of this world of fundraising.
Yeah, and you've got to launch the business. But interesting, you come from an entrepreneurial family. So let's talk about that for a minute and talk about the support that you had from your family and not only kind of morally, but then, of course, the financial support in terms of raising investment with them.
Yeah.
So were they kind of like, yes, Alex, this is brilliant, we've got your back?
Almost, yeah. And I did it early mid-20s specifically. I had a nice corporate job and it was in a fun company and I liked the people I worked with, but I thought you know, I could blink and I'll still be here 15, 20 years later. And then, you know, I may have children, you know, I have a mortgage and all those things. I thought, you've caught the bug for this idea. Do it now. You haven't got as far to fall.
Yeah.
You're still on your junior salary. And I think my family saw that and they thought, now's the time to try those things. Now's the time to take those risks. And I wasn't asking for money straight away, you know, because I was using my savings. I was kind of proving that I was really serious about this. I was putting my money where my mouth was and, you know, that sort of thing. But they were really excited about the idea, especially the women with big boobs. But then, you know, there's a point where it starts getting real. It's like, I'm actually thinking of launching this. My savings are running low. Start having those conversations about, okay, you know, you might need to think about raising. Where are you going to raise from? And that's where you kind of, we began to have conversations about friends and family putting in a little bit just so I could launch.
And so how did you go about that, Alex, once you decided that you were going to go to people you knew and ask them to back you?
I didn't go to people I knew and pitch. Not for that very first. I raised 50 pre-launch, basically to do my production run and to have a couple of grand to kind of launch, do a little bit of PR and create a little bit of buzz at the beginning. So I did the second time, but not the first. The first was very much, and I think this is, you know, how it happens in the beginning for a lot of founders I know, which is you're having a lot of conversations, you're talking a lot about your company, and you know, you're trying to get people excited, you're talking about the launch, you might have an uncle or a family friend who's really interested in business and wants to go through your financial model with you. And it was quite, you know, those relationships, that some conversations carried on with a couple of people where they were quite interested in how I was doing it and what was special about it and what my approach was. And sort of through that process, I would open up to them and say, okay, here's my financial model, here's my unit economics. And they were almost giving me a bit of advice, but also getting quite interested in what I was doing. And pretty much they just said, you know, if you want to send over some slides, or if you want to actually officially sort of show me what you think your business is worth, I'd be interested in putting in and helping you out with getting about 50K to launch. So that's how it happened in the beginning.
Yeah, and that's such a great way of doing it. The best way, I think, when you've got people coming to you and saying, actually, if you were going to raise investment, I'd like to back you. And I think it's, you know, I love what you say, Alex, about talking to lots of people all the time.
Yeah,
I think that's so important. It's networking effectively.
absolutely.
But you know, some founders feel a bit worried about talking to people about their idea, especially in the early days where they think, oh, well, somebody might steal the idea, or maybe they're afraid of talking about it because it puts pressure on them to make it happen. Did you feel quite comfortable in talking quite openly about what you were doing?
No, I think I had the same feeling in the beginning, like, well, maybe I shouldn't tell people. And I know lots of founders who feel really nervous about it. But quite early on, someone gave me a piece of advice, just like, only good things will happen from speaking to people about your business. And if someone wants to steal your idea and actually is going to go and create a business about wire-free bras, you know, for D+ cup sizes, then let them try if they're really going to go and steal. So I thought, yeah, you're so right. And as soon as I started opening up to people and talking about it, I could really see that was a really good piece of advice. You get, as you said, it's brilliant networking. For me, a lot of people, oh my gosh, my sister-in-law's in your size range. Oh, you should speak to her. She's been complaining about her bras for years. Amazing. I don't know anything about your sister-in-law. She could be a potential investor. She could be a potential mentor. She could be a potential customer, or she could just be someone to give me feedback. All of those people are so valuable in the beginning. So, you know, you really need those people. They're everything in the beginning. So yeah, I was really open to talking to people. I just became the bra woman, and everyone would be like, oh, here's my friend Alex starting a bra company. And it's like,
I know exactly how you feel. My last business was a shoe company, and I was always known as the shoe lady, you know.
yeah.
I always had it imprinted on my head. Oh, it's the shoe lady. Everyone would start telling me about their foot problems.
Oh yeah, yeah, I get that a lot. Can I send you a photo of my bras? Yes, of course.
But that's really good. And as you say, one thing leads to another, leads to another. When you start a business and you've not come from that sector, you need to find experts to help you in all sorts of ways. So I think that open and honest approach is great, and has obviously got you a long way. So you raised that first 50K from who then? Was it a lot of people, or one or two?
No, it was 2 people, 2 in for 25 each, and one family, one friend.
Okay, great. That's really exciting. And then you decided to raise a little bit more, didn't you? Was that straight away, or did you wait for a while before you did a second round?
It was about 6 months after I launched. So I used the 50 to pay for my first production order, which was quite a lot of money, actually, because we don't have the infrastructure here in the UK. You have to go further afield to get underwear made, and quite often, depending on where you get it manufactured, there's quite high minimums. So you can't say, can I just get 25 bras and see if I can sell them, please? That would have been ideal. So I had a lot of stock, and I needed to go and sell it. So I really focused the initial launch on that. I mean, your job completely changes the day you launch. I spent the previous year developing bras, and then as soon as I launched, I was like day-to-day running a business, financial management, bookkeeping, marketing, customer service. Suddenly you're doing like 10 different jobs. So really focused on that, and I knew I needed to get sales. I needed to get good initial traction, good initial feedback, genuine feedback, not 5-star reviews. Because I could use that, I could leverage that to get to the next level, the next level of the game, basically. That's how I always talk about it. So I really focused on that. And then I realized, I'm not profitable in the beginning. I've spent most of that initial money on product, and if I'm not profitable, I'm going to run out of money. So I need to raise again. So I could use the first few months' traction, the revenue numbers, the traffic, the PR, all of that, to put together a deck to then go and raise. And I tried I tried a lot of avenues at that point, friends and family. I started researching the VC route. I started going to pitch nights. That's when I really started to look at the world of fundraising and see how scary it is.
Yeah, and it can feel scary.
Yes.
And how did that go? What was challenging for you?
Being a female founder of a non-tech business was like my number one challenge. I seem to be too late for a lot of people who wanted to invest like really, really early on, or far too early for a lot of other people. Like they wanted you to be doing like 1 or 2 million a year. So I found myself, it's what people told me, that I was in this like weird limbo phase, and a lot of conversations, oh, that's really impressive, great. But I'm actually just don't know anything about retail, or I'm not an e-com person, or I'm really focusing on tech at the moment. So good luck with everything.
I mean, there's a few different issues there, aren't there? I mean, one is about the stage that you're at.
Yeah.
The business you have, and then the female founder piece, which are actually probably 3 different things. I mean, the stage you're at is an interesting one, isn't it? And it is so frustrating. And if you've ever listened to this podcast, you'll know that it is a recurring theme. The feedback is kind of come back when you've got more traction,
Yeah.
And you're right. Some people do like to get in right at the beginning when you're selling the dream. But this bit where you've got some traction but not loads can be challenging, but it usually means that there's still too much risk for those people. So it's finding the right people. The second issue, as you said, is about the type of business you've got. So where were you looking to find these investors to speak to? Were you looking online, being introduced to people? Kind of, how did it work?
Yeah, a bit of a scattergun approach. I was looking online. I was looking for female investor groups a lot of the time. I did really want to have a female investor, and sort of talking through the problem. It doesn't have to be, but I think a lot of the investor conversations I had, they would have to refer to someone else, whether it be a wife or a daughter or a sister, to understand if it really was a problem that women faced and if the Freedom Bra did actually work, which is absolutely fine. And I have, male investors, but it's not quite the same as someone who's like, oh my God, I've hated wired bras for 15 years. It's that kind of real, oh my gosh, I get this problem and I'm so excited to be part of the solution. So that's why I was really looking for female investor groups, but not a lot came of those. I spoke to some VCs kind of through my network, but more just like early, just sort of conversations. What are they looking for? What types of businesses are they interested in? And to be honest, another problem was you find a group, a VC, an investor, someone who is quite interested in what you're doing or the stage you're at, whatever it might be, but, oh, I've just invested in one of your competitors or someone adjacent, or not even a competitor for me, but just someone in women's fashion or in women's basics. So that would be a reason why it was like, come back when you're even more impressive, essentially. So I ended up really, most of my investment in the second part came from my friends and family and their networks. I kind of went out one extra layer of the onion there. So I said, who do you know that you might be able to put me in contact with? Friends, someone my friend's mum dated, like that sort of thing, like, oh, he invests in small businesses, why don't you chat? And I would take every single conversation, no matter who they were, no matter what they were looking for, because it's either great practice or you learn something, you find something interesting.
I think that is so important for people to understand this piece around the second layer of the onion. My advice is always start with your network and work outwards from there, because you're still really early stage. It's still really risky. Yeah. Most kind of professional investors will come back when you've got more traction, especially when they don't necessarily really get what it is you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think your approach there in terms of, reaching out with your octopus tentacles was the right one.
It was quite scary. You're talking to like, your husband's boss and his friends, and it's people you don't know, yet it's still kind of close to home, and you don't want to sort of embarrass yourself or have a bad conversation. It's still connected to you through the network, and it's quite scary to reach out to that professor you went to uni with and say like, hey, can I send you my deck? It's you're putting yourself out there. It's that same thing about talking about your business again. It's just slightly different, which is I'm talking about it. I'm actually really reaching out now to people who I haven't spoken to in a while, and I'm sending them my deck. This is real, and I'm opening myself up to people like looking at what I'm doing now.
Yeah. I mean, there's a huge amount of vulnerability in that, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah.
Vulnerability in that. And I think, I say so brave, that sounds really patronizing. But actually, yeah, to contact that guy who was your professor at university, that takes some, whatever the female equivalent of balls is, because it's quite scary. So, well done for doing that, I would say. I think you've got to do that. So looking back, do you remember kind of how many conversations you had, just to put it in context for other people who are on this journey?
Gosh, I don't think I could say. I mean, it wasn't hundreds, but it was a lot of like initial calls and a lot of Zooms. And just, in essence, just rehearsing what you're saying.
Yeah.
telling your story and finding things. Oh, that's really interesting. You said that. That's, you know, oh, that's part of my story that piques people's interest. You've been through it and you say it a lot. You can get a bit numb to what people find really interesting. So you kind of learn those things, and you learn how to tailor your story to different people. I don't tell it the same to everyone.
Yeah, that's great, because you'll learn your craft
Yeah.
of building narrative, having effective conversations with potential backers. I mean, these are skills that are not easy to develop.
Yeah. And
Really?
I was so, I thought I had to be perfect. I thought I had to be like a seasoned founder or entrepreneur who had like answers to all the questions, and, you know, had really had this most polished deck, and all my numbers worked out perfectly down to the decimal point. You know, I was paranoid that, which I think a lot of founders find, and it's sort of part of that imposter syndrome thing, which is like, they're going to find out I'm a fraud. Whereas really, I think you just got to be yourself, and people will respond well to it.
Yeah, I agree.
They want to invest in someone who's authentic and isn't trying to bullshit them. And it's easy when you're trying to be perfect to come across, not in the wrong way, but just, you know, in a way that makes them think,
Yeah, well, you don't want to come across as kind of salesy.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think, I mean, many founders, and I think especially female founders, we hate this idea of being salesy or bullshitty or arrogant.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't sit well with most female founders that I know and work with. So,
no, I agree. But, you know, I had some uncomfortable questions and conversations. I was asked a number of times, not outright, but they basically wanted to know if this was a lifestyle business and if I was just about to go and have kids.
okay. Again, not hugely surprised. It's disappointing to hear.
Yeah.
And I think that question just doesn't ever get asked of male founders.
No.
How did
I knew what they were asking, and it's you know, it's interesting. I learned how to, you know, I was quite taken aback the first time. You sort of do fumble your way through the answer, and then you get off the phone and you think, God, he was just basically asking me if I was going to have kids, wasn't he? And then you think about how you'd react next time.
So how did you react at the time?
First time, I think I doubled down and was like, absolutely not. This is not a lifestyle business. This is never why I set this up. We have huge ambitions. You know, this is my 5-year goal. I'm still like mid 20s, you know, but I didn't even, was I just being defensive? You know, do I even need to go that far? I don't think I do.
I mean, we shouldn't even be asked that question. That's
exactly.
You have to be thinking, how do I answer this to either tell them what they want to hear or be, I mean, what's the truth of it? You might be, you said, I don't know. You know, or maybe, yes, maybe I am going to have a baby next year. And so what? You know, it doesn't mean you still can't do this, but it's a very difficult one. Very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you had to go through that. But does it make you feel, so you came off the phone and you said you felt kind of, hang on a minute, what was that? Does that feel like a bit of a red flag to you in terms of that person being an investor in your business?
Yes. And there's now like a list of red flags I have, which is them understanding the way they talk about the industry, the way they talk about the problem, and those kind of questions they would ask me. And it wasn't so overt, but it was very much, they found out through the call, through asking me, that I was 26, newly married, and they thought, she just wants to have a baby soon, and I need to figure out if she's just gonna stop this in 18 months time, you know, when she gets pregnant. That was clearly where they were going with the question. And then also finding out that they just, women want sexy underwear, you know, comments like that. The language they used as well around like not inappropriate language, but just, you know, they would quite often sort of call women well endowed and things like that. And I just think, you know, it's not a no, but it's like, I'm not sure you quite understand this kind of, there's the product, but as a brand, we want to speak to women in a 21st century way. We want to represent real women. We're by women and for women. And they couldn't echo the language I was using. And I think it was more representation of potentially they felt a bit uncomfortable talking about big boobs. So therefore it's just not a good match.
Yeah. I mean, I love this idea of having, you know, a list of red flags. shared values.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that should always be on that. So if you're clear about your values, you know, they're using that as a litmus test when you are speaking to investors. So, and it's really difficult when you see the money running out and you need the investment and there's somebody there who might invest, to stand strong and kind of say, actually, no, that's not the right fit for me.
Yeah, that's it's a commitment, taking someone on, and as an investor, and you know, you have to think seriously about it. And I also learned that kind of power imbalance, and I think that comes down to it as well. When you're seeing the money run out, you can kind of feel like I need some investors. You know, that's not the case. You are speaking, you know, I'm Alex Pluthero, I'm speaking about my business to someone. There's something in it for them, there's something in it for me. This is not charity.
Yeah, and you're right. It's about stepping into your power and holding your own in those conversations. So with that sort of second round, I'm intrigued to know then, what was the result in terms of the types of investors that came on board, the gender balance actually after everything that you just said?
I have one female investor, but these were, I had one family, one more friend, and the rest were the next layer of the onion. So they were business people who worked adjacent to startup as well. So not just someone who has worked in big corporate, but kind of, they were quite interested in speaking to me initially because it was startup and they were interested in other startup businesses, or they were consulting for startup businesses. So they got a lot of the problems early on. So predominantly men. I did struggle. I spoke to quite a few female groups, and it just didn't happen in that round. So I'm always open to that. But, you know, the investors that I spoke to in the second round, they all really got it. They were really interested. And, you know, majority of them, when I say reached out to me, it wasn't like a cold call, but, you know, someone had told them about my business and they had got in contact to say, oh, I'm actually really interested to hear more about this. So it was less of a pitch and more of a please tell me more, because I kind of already get the problem and solution.
Fantastic. Yeah, wow. Okay, so only one female investor. I mean, and it's a shame, isn't it, that you didn't get anywhere or further with the female angel groups, but there aren't many of them, that in my experience, and there aren't huge funds yet. We still have quite a long way to go. I mean, if you would like to see one or two changes happen in the industry now to make it easier for founders like you with businesses like yours to get through and play to the next level of the game, what would you like to see change?
I think primarily just more transparency about what you're looking for. It's like a full-time job raising funds, and I'm also doing my full-time job running Freedom, and you know, by the very nature of being an entrepreneur in my position, you don't have a lot of funds, you don't have a team or a huge amount of resources, so you're spending quite a lot of time. And I think if you are interested in, because a lot of investors said to me, we're actively looking to diversify our portfolio and invest in women. If you're interested in retail businesses, e-commerce businesses, fashion businesses, say it. And if you're not, don't. Because as much as it's great to have those initial conversations, there's a lot of time spent where they say they're really interested, they want to hear more, they really like to invest in female, but actually we really want to invest in tech companies. Well, just be honest about it, because there is a lot of sort of like stumbling around in the dark about fundraising, and I think it just needs a few leaders to really turn the lights on and say, here's exactly what we're looking for, we're really going to stick to what we say we're going to do, and then it just becomes clearer for the rest of us as to who to speak to and where to go.
It's very difficult to navigate that world.
Yeah.
And in an ideal world, you'd put all this stuff in online, and what would come back is the perfect list of investors for you, but it doesn't work like that. It's far more complex. So yeah, I think that's very wise. And investors, I mean, they love to have meetings with lots of people just so that they can keep their fingers on the pulse of what's going on in the market, and often have absolutely, as you say, no intention of investing, or they've already invested in that sector. They're just kind of keeping their hand in, seeing what's going on in the market, where you, the founder, is wasting your time having those conversations. I mean, then it's never a waste of time.
No, exactly. It's that fine balance between, like I did just say, it's really worth having those conversations. It is, but maybe we could just have a chat. Whereas I don't need to go into it as this could be a potential investor conversation. We can still have a chat and connect. Maybe just stay in contact. But yeah, if you have absolutely no intention in investing in a non-tech business, tell me that up front, and we'll happily chat. Maybe you know someone you can put me in touch with. It doesn't have to be for nothing, but at the same time, it doesn't need to be like the full initial sort of pitch.
I mean, I think there's something, advice I would give, and I think it's worth people thinking about this, is how can you pre-qualify people before you do invest too much time? And it can be the quick questions over email about, just before we meet, just want to know if you're actively investing. Are you definitely interested in these kind of sectors? Because obviously I don't want to waste your time, Mr. or Mrs. Investor. What you really mean is you don't want to waste your time. So yeah, but these are things that you learn the more you go on, and the more
exactly.
So great. So what's next then for Freedom? Where does the brand go next? And do you think you will need to raise investment again in the near future to get you there?
Yes, I do anticipate us needing to raise again. We just turned 2 actually, which is so exciting. We just launched a big campaign around that. We are, as you mentioned at the beginning, we're now in 21 stores, and we're really growing our wholesale presence as well in the UK and in the US, and many markets to come, which is exciting. So really going into new markets is a focus for us, and expanding our product range. We've kept it really, really small in the beginning. That's part of us having a really clear message to women about what we do, but it's also partly us just being lean and being able to survive for 2 years. So that's kind of where we're growing, and we want to diversify our product range and expand into new markets. I'm excited to share that we are also profitable, so that's really exciting for us. However, as I've mentioned a couple of times, our business model is having to front quite a lot of money for physical product before you can go and sell it. And if we are going to really expand, I do anticipate that we are going to need some funding. So we raised our second round off the turnover we did in our first year, which is just under $500,000. And so we kind of raised off a multiple of that. We're hoping to just grow that to a point where, investors don't feel like it's so risky. We'll have been around for a number of years, we'll have been established, developed retailer relationships. And I think if we get a couple of major retailers, which we're in conversation with, that'll also really speak to that risk element as well.
Yeah. Oh, it's so exciting. There's so much potential. And as you say, it's a huge problem that needs solving. So I think, if you do it well, you've got a chance of
so much to be done.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's been really, really interesting to hear all about your experience, Alex, and we wish you all the best for the future.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been great to speak to you.
Thanks for following Fundraising Stories with Female Founders. This content is all provided to you for free, so if you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe so you never miss another one. Enter the Arena has helped hundreds of female founders fly through pre-raise and investment and onto the exponential growth of their business. Our first-hand experience, expert guidance, and proven programs help female founders unleash the Wonder Woman inside. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to www.enterthearena.co.uk. I'm Julia Elliott-Brown, and I look forward to talking with you soon.